Now 28 minutes to 8 o'clock. It's the newsroom where we're looking at, well, the blackout that has been on since yesterday and I believe is still on many of the leading TV stations, including KTN News. Right now, we're broadcasting live on KTN Home, but we're off on KTN News. However, we've been streaming live. And of course, this has been a matter of concern as a follow-up of what happened yesterday. So a quick reintroduction of who we have in the studio. We have Victor Bwire, Henry Minor, and Eric Oduor to have this discussion. Let me start with you, Victor, as we come back on the way forward. We have established that there is a gap, there is a problem that we have, especially given that media owners seem not to be very honest with the media fraternity in terms of how we run the business. The business model seems to be skewed because we are depending on government for revenue, and that right there becomes a short circuit. What's the way forward? Do we need to change our business model?
At this stage, thanks. One, there is, just like it's happening globally, for business, media business via investors to change approach. We need just to relook at our business model and see, is it tandem with the current way of doing business? Yes. Media houses are, cutting down globally. It's a global problem. Even other companies, banks, and everywhere. It's not limited to media house. But how are the other industries reacting to these changes? Are we still stuck with the models of 1980s, which we want to use to run media houses currently? That one can't happen. I give an example of layoffs. Even World Bank has done studies and published. Layoffs or these early retirement things always affect companies negatively because you always lose the best staff who are willing to take risks. They will take the money, go and try something else. So when you invest in retrenching staff, you are not helping. Two, when you're taking 200 people who you pay 30,000, how much are you saving? Is it the best way of saving by laying off correspondents who in the first place do not even, who are paid 10,000 shillings per month? It doesn't help. Why can't we look at, for example, why would standard people have huge printing presses along Mombasa Road, which are not fully maximized? Why can't they do, for example, joint printing? Why, for example, do they give out these businesses for printing calendars and other things for other companies? It will be a source of income, huge. Why would Standard, for example, have a huge office in Mombasa, pay rent which they are not using? Why can't they, for example, run one business, all of them?
So you show the other ways of cutting down and make sure that we maximize the revenue that we have.
But we are still stuck. Like Henry said, we are still stuck on expecting our major survival from advertising from one end, which is not work. Government is also looking for ways. I work in government. They are looking for ways of reducing expenditure on government. That's why they started GAA. They have started their own, My Government and other. In fact, the advice is now where you can advertise and save money even on your website and do that. So have our media managers understood the environment in which they are. So that's a major thing that media houses must look. There must be new business models. Okay. We have seen where people are reaching out, even trustees, for example, the Nation, the health magazine at Nation is being supported by the Melinda Gates Foundation. Those are new ways, innovative ways of thinking, where collaborations with universities, for example, research. And so media houses must. They
must think very creatively.
Two, the other thing I was going to mention is that we must now move also ahead and do what is called evidence-based reporting. When we are saying government shut down media houses, yes, government. But who did this?
Is it the communications authority?
Because we saw this thing happening in Uganda, where when we start stressing which officer from communication authority of did this, under which, because there was no written law that, so nobody even knows if it was an official government position, it was an individual who failed, whatever, or the thugs who did, because we are just assuming there's no communication. So as we find out, and that's what we are saying, let's establish who exactly did, because people must carry their responsibility. The era of when Victor, Media Council officer, messes and we say it's government, it's also going. Let's put faces to these people who are doing this.
Yes, I believe that probably as we continue discussing them, I think some point we might get to court
Yes.
And I'm glad that Victor is talking about that we must now go to individuals actually who did this, so that anybody who did this must now take individual responsibility, because this is an illegality that took place, so that in future we do not have a situation whereby impunity will be allowed to reign, where somebody can just wake up and go to Lemur and switches off the transmitters of media houses, because this is a business. And for the whole of yesterday and even today, given that it has not been switched on, it means that the businesses actually have incurred losses. And so that somebody can be held responsible and be charged in court for that. And I'll go back to what when Henry was talking. I said that so long as, and I know from my training as a trade union, so long as you've surrendered your independence to someone and you go to that person and you appear weak, there's nothing you can get there. And that is exactly what has happened in this country, whereby the media managers and the investors have surrendered the independence to the state, and therefore they are at the mercy of the state. And therefore, that means that the state can do anything they want. And I agree with the Victor that right now we should start talking about the different business models. I've attended various forums where various countries actually are now thriving. If you look at the media in India, in Japan, the newspapers are doing well. The traditional media actually is doing very well, because they have devised the way of doing business. They are no longer just focusing on advertising as the only and the major source of revenue, but now they're looking at various sources of revenue, so that advertising actually just complement and supplement what they are already getting from other sources of revenue.
All right. Henry Minor, coming back to the shutdown and the darkness that we're in right now as media houses, are we saying that we actually have almost no power to react or do anything until we get to that point where now we're going to court and looking for those individuals who literally shut down? Because right now, we have no statement telling us why it was shut down. We don't know who did it. We are working on assumption.
But what are the managers from KTN or whoever who attended that meeting on Friday telling you guys? You must also put pressure on these insincere guys within ourselves who are being part of this game.
I want to begin by saying that it's incumbent upon media owners and senior media managers to seek to find out exactly what happened. I appreciate, I think, Uhuru yesterday issued a short statement indicating that we are engaging government. One of the things they would discover, and this is perhaps where I differ with Eric, is that if media managers and media owners avoid shadowy secret meetings, the citizens will come to their aid. Citizens could even want to go with them to Communications Authority or to ICT Ministry to have the ministry give a statement as fast. But if they think that they can broker deals in closed spaces in secrecy, then they would be already undoing what is expected of the media by being the light that shines in dark spaces. So anytime they've gone for the secret meetings, let them know that they will be punished twice. For one, running away from the very significant role they are supposed to play, which is about shining light. But the second part is to try and think through, and as Eric and Victor said, we need to be able to hold people to account. If, for instance, a court of law would be able to adjudge and pay damages to the media houses for the losses incurred. Remember, after the Atur's attack on Standard, the courts found the government to have been to have violated the law. But I've sat back and noticed that some of the computers and equipment carted away have never been returned. What that tells you that there is a level of impunity on this government side. What Nairobians ask as utadu attitude, and that is impunity. So if we don't cut the vicious cycle of impunity, then a junior officer in government is going perhaps to get into the next transmission site in Mount Elgon and think that I can also just do this. Another one in Voi will also get onto the site and destroy the transmission points. We need to be able to cut that vicious cycle by holding individuals to account. And I think it is important for the likes of Dr. Hannington Gaya to now stand up. If he is the true chair of media owners, is he happy with this closure? We haven't heard him saying anything. I think he was too fast to react to Linus Kaikai's statement. We need to see him acting as fast in saying that this closure is illegal, it is counterproductive to the economy of Kenya, and there isn't a higher economic sabotage than this closure. So when we've had people talking about economic sabotage in other platforms where there wasn't clear and visible position, here is one that goes against the very grain of resuscitating our economy. The third part is that the media must try as much as possible not to over-rely on political stories alone, because that is what is creating a big division between the natural allies of the media, citizens, and CSO groups, where they begin to feel that the only thing that the media dwells on are political stories. And once they are done with political stories, the rest are small fillers. And therefore, citizens are not readily available to support media freedom because they don't think that you are giving them that platform. Yet, citizens suffer most when media freedom is curtailed. Because people must understand the instrumentality of access to information and things people ought to do. Try and think there are people who avoided going on duty yesterday thinking there would be anarchy. If the media were on air and it showed that there was no anarchy,
you can make an informed decision.
Then our economy will have fared better yesterday. And therefore there is a function, a positive function that we miss out. There are people who couldn't travel because they thought there were chaos in Nairobi. And the online sensational approach took precedent because a professional media group that would have curated information and said there is nothing wrong. People have been allowed to assemble at Uhuru Park. They've done whatever activity they were doing, and the country is moving on positively. So when we shut that, we created room for fake news. We created room for amateur people who wanted to push perhaps lame stories to have their field day.
All right, and Victor, maybe it's not one thing that can solve our problem, especially here in Kenya right now. There are quite a number of things that are coming out of this. We have a part that we are blamed for as media. We do have the state interference. What do you see as a clear map of the way forward? Because we must start somewhere to fix this.
One, a very strong, very strong, not necessarily united, but a very strong organized editors guild is going to be very important. Because all along, media has been fighting media owners' wars. Journalists have been fighting media owners' wars, which are not their wars.
Now that you've mentioned the Editors Guild, we even saw a statement from the chair and the vice chair conflicting, complete conflict. So there seems to be issues right there.
So we need to raise above our political, economic, deals and what, and be journalists. And at that level, editors should provide leadership. So to me, I'm looking at a very strong editors guild. However, the various, obviously, the various political, but we must have a strong editor to provide leadership on media matters. Obviously, journalists must enroll. We need a very strong Kenya Union of Journalists, very strong by journalists joining and being members, so that is strong. We need very strong KCS. We need very strong AMWICs. Very strong Article 19 media support groups, because that's where, and then obviously once we have that, then we have a voice. A jointed way of looking at industry problems, then reacting. That is strong. Two, as we move forward, obviously, media owners and media investors must notice that running a media business is different from running a fruit or soda industry or whatever it is. It needs different skills, different approach. Like we say, we must mix. There's the public interest issue and there's the profit. We can't run an industry purely on profit, relying on just getting profits and profits alone. Media is a public investment way. Remember, even the frequencies, we run them on the behalf of Kenyans.
Right.
And that's why CA and others can simply say, we are recouping this. So it's not a business that you want to run like a kiosk. So that always must help. Honest discussion among media industry is needed urgently, and we had a discussion with Eric yesterday and Henry. How do we quickly bring together media stakeholders so that we look at this thing as an industry? Because even some of these problems are created by gaps in our policies and laws. For example, what's the media policy of this country?
There isn't.
I mean, those are issues. In a country where, that's why, if you look at even Vision 2030, look at the government MTP now 4.3, media is not mentioned as an industry that will contribute to the development of this. Yet industry, in countries like Rwanda, media is an industry where people are investing. And that's why closing or opening media is so simple, because people think media is just a place to go and cover press conference. They are not looking at it as an industry that is generating huge revenues. I mean, in Kenya here, media is almost a 9 billion industry. That's a huge investment. But look at most of our policy documents, and is it looked at as an industry that generates? Because that then tells you we need to engage with government, with policymakers through as an industry approach to position the media as a major player, not just in reporting, but as a contributor to the national growth that we are talking about.
All right, Henry Miner, your thoughts on possibly the way forward and how we can get ourselves out of this issue that we're in right now?
One, I think, is for the country to realize that every segment of this society is needed and is here lawfully if Kenya is going to grow. So government is needed, civil society is needed, and the media is needed. But all of us in our own existence must be guided by rule of law. We cannot cherry pick the law when it suits one entity and apply it to the rest. The law that applies to government must be the law that applies to media, that applies to the opposition, and applies to civil society. The second part, I think, is for the media industry to slightly think broader than the immediate survival. That the very survival of the media industry is hinged on Kenya surviving. That if they think about their own survival as if they may be able to survive when the rest of the country unravels, that's fallacious, it's a lie. So simplistic survival instincts may be necessary, but they are not sufficient to safeguard the media industry. And therefore, thinking about the bigger public good and serving more interests than just the interests of the government of the day or the immediate investors, so that there is a proper balance on the interests that are being served. The third part, I think, is also for the media to increase their levels of professionalism, because one of the reasons that has gotten us where we are today is the media that begins to play partisan politics. So today you see all those oath in quotes and whatever it means in English. So you begin to see that somebody is struggling to run a narrative that is written elsewhere. And that is partisan kind of journalism. So if the media were to go back to professional thinking and avoid these partisan slants that in themselves jeopardize their readers and their audience, then we are likely to survive more. Of course, I agree with Victor that the industry needs to put its heads together, and the industry heads from whatever trade unions, regulators, need to come back to the table and work together.
All right, and we're out of time. Eric Oduor, your closing comments.
Yes, I would say that I totally agree that as an industry, we need to organize ourselves so that we can come out very clearly with clear strategies on how we can address and approach some of these issues. Had this thing happened to another industry, I'm sure somebody else, somewhere will be having a court order going to compel the government actually to switch on these exactly.
Loss.
But now we are in an industry where like we are like headless chicken. Nobody knows who is supposed to be doing what. So I believe that if we can come out and organize groups so that we can protect the interest of the industry, I think that's going to be very important. But if we are going to be driven by greed, as in, that we want to make money, yet we cannot protect that, it's going to be a big problem.
All right, and thank you very much. But before we wind up, let me just read a few of the comments that have been coming through on social media. I have over and over again thought that media houses should give less airtime to politicians. I think that's what Henry Miner was referring to. They should give more time to solution-based discussions on their platforms. Until then, expect more of what happened yesterday. Let me see. This is from White Rhino, who says that I'm not supporting the shutdown, but we must take responsibility. Not everybody has a constructive opinion on any subject. Felani says that since the problem has been identified, it's time for a good resolution. We have Ndungu Wajesi, who says absolutely not fair to Kenyans. Patriot says the media has a role in shaping of public opinion and strengthening of society, not disseminating irresponsible information and insights and degenerate society. Kenya media is the epitome of the latter. How unfortunate that that's how you feel. This is a rogue government that doesn't adhere to the rule of law as enshrined in the Constitution. They mismanage our parliament and now want to do some in the media houses. We have to resist their move. Let me read one more. Live reporting requires a sharp reporter. Censors who ask for their commitment. I had guys disrespecting our leaders live on camera. So there you go. Many more tweets coming in. Let's keep the conversation going on online. But for now, because of time, we'll have to wind up right there. Thank you very much, Eric Odur, who is Secretary General for Kenya Union of Journalists. We have Henry Minor, who's the Regional Director for Article 19. And last but not least, Victor Buiro, Programs Manager for MCK, Media Council of Kenya. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. For now, we wind up newsroom right there, but we take a look at the weather as we release our viewers on KTN Home and say goodbye. But on KTN News online, we continue, and your health is coming up shortly.